Hi everyone, my name's Annie and I'm currently a marketing manager at Unilever working on local ice cream brands in Australia and New Zealand. I've spent most of my career working across some fantastic local and global brands in FMCG, and the reality is all brands have one thing in common. You're constantly searching to make sure that you've found the true consumer insight to keep your brand meaningful and relevant to consumers over time. The reality is that growth in the FMCG sector over the last 10 years has slowed over decades prior because our lives are changing more rapidly than ever before, and launching brands has never been easier. So safe to say, competition has been fierce. And working in a framework of setting a strategy and spending 12 months executing one PowerPoint or piece of paper, it just no longer exists. As a business or brand, you have to remain agile at every level of the strategy to ensure that you're both responding to the market that could be changing before your eyes, but also creating value with the resources you have. Resources aren't finite, and every time you might need to pivot or react to the market, you don't have an endless stream of resources that you can add to your pool. So you've got to make what you've got work harder for you. When we're talking about agility and thinking about the differences between local and global brands, on one hand, you might say local brands have the ability to be more agile because they have more operational flexibility in that if they are made locally and run locally, you are one step closer to your end consumer. And it may mean that you're not relying on shipping schedules or containers being available to book, but it also means that you need to be sharper with your insights. You may not have that backing of a global brand who can mass democratize at once and react, and the moment that they launch a product or that they start speaking, consumers listen inherently because their voices are so much louder. However, with being a local brand, it does mean that your purpose and your sole vision is about ensuring that one clear geographical group of people are being served very well, which does remove one layer of consumer segmentation. But regardless, whether you're a local brand or a global brand, every great strategy comes from having your finger on the pulse and then strategically executing as brilliantly as possible. So let's break that down. Having your finger on the pulse is not a new term by any means. It's fundamentally the basic point of ensuring you've accurately analysed your environment, internally and externally, and you know what is truly going to solve something for your end consumer, whoever that may be. When we look at the external environment, this may mean considering new channels that are in strong growth. In FMCG, that means discounters, hypermarkets like Costco, or even e-commerce platforms, which enable delivery of products that years ago you may not have thought you wanted delivered. But now, because you can, you will. An example of that is ordering ice cream at home. 5 years ago, if you'd really been craving ice cream while watching Netflix, you might have needed to go to your local supermarket or convenience store to pick one up. These days, you can do it all from the couch, ordering on Uber Eats, and probably spending a little more than you would have if you'd gone in store, just for that convenience. In FMCG, this might mean making a decision between investing your research and development funds into a longer-term meaningful solution like developing a sugar-free alternative formulation, which will take resource, time, expertise, or is it simply about creating a new exciting flavour that will make consumers want to run to the freezer and pick it up, like birthday cake, which was a great trending flavour in 2020. And by 2021, it might be yesterday's news. Okay, so now we've got our fingers on the pulse. What do we mean when we talk about execution strategy? If we know the consumer pain point we're solving for, the remainder is solving how we're going to bring the best possible solution to consumers and involve them in the journey. Traditionally, companies would have taken their piece of paper and gone out and said, we're going to execute it start to finish. The formulation will need to hit this and the end product will result like this. But what we do know is it's never the case. Along the way, you're going to have bumps, and inevitably you need to change from that day one picture on a page. Traditionally, companies would take their piece of paper and go out and try and execute it best they can, start to finish, because they've thought so much in advance at the start of the project about what's going to make success work or how we're going to get there, that actually you don't want to pivot because you've spent so much time focused already on selling in the solution. But the reality is we know it's never the case in practice. It's a bit of a messy loop at best. So we need to bring the consumer in at each stage of the journey, co-create the solution, check in on how they're going to react, as each implication comes to light. Sometimes we glide over the fact that an internal implication has changed the external solution, and we haven't actually gone back to check with consumers. So if you're really going to solve for a consumer pain point, the consumer needs to be a real voice in the process. And this can be on any element. There's a range of research tools that will enable you to do this. You really do see the proof is in the pudding. When products truly resonate with consumers, the moment their launch is announced, consumers are already excited. You can see that they're talking, and media outlets want to report on this news. They want to share it, not just as a hashtag ad, but as a general public service announcement. These outlets are essentially saying, hey consumers, you asked for it, here it is. And they know that their readers really want to know about this. They don't need to be paid to do so. It's exactly what happens when Apple launches new iPhones. You see that there is this consumer following where they want to leak the new features. They want to be a part of the reviews and telling other consumers whether or not it's worth it or not. They're the top articles each time this comes around. At the same time, you can see some really exciting novelty products like Golden Gaytime flavored popcorn. That's just so exciting that consumers go, we want to share it with our family and friends. And it is pretty exciting, as light touch as it may be and as low involvement as it may be, but that's real consumer magic. The reality is that brand can be local or global. It's just going to be the answer to consumers' demands or desires. That's when strategy is really working. So think about it. Think about your strategy. Does it solve a consumer pain point? What is the so what of your product or service? Because if you can't answer that, then it's really going to be your consumers who will be saying, so what? So good luck.